They are a group of 5 mysterious beings, sent to Middle-earth to push back against the threat of Sauron. Though to men they would appear to simply be old men, their true nature was much, much greater. Today on Nerd of the Rings, we cover the form and powers of the Istari. The Heren Istarion, a Quenya term meaning the Order of Wizards, was formed in Valinor by the Valar, who had perceived the first stirring of Sauron again in Middle-earth. We are told much of this tale in the Unfinished Tales chapter on the Istari. Manwe, the king of the Valar, calls a council where it is decided they shall send 3 emissaries. The Vala Aule chose one of his own Maiar, Kurumo. Orome appoints the Maya Alatar, and Manwe asks the Maya Olorin to be the 3rd. Olorin initially does not wish to go, for he feared Sauron. Manwe insists that it is for that very reason why he should go. But the 3 would become 5, as Alatar takes with him his friend Palando. Meanwhile, Yavanna, the Vala of all things that grow, begged Kurumo to take with him one of her Maiar, Eowendil, and thus it would be these 5 Maiar who would become the Istari and make the journey to Middle-earth at the behest of the Valar. For with the consent of Eru, they sent members of their own high order, but clad in bodies as of men, real and not feigned, but subject to the fears and pains and weariness of earth, able to hunger and thirst and be slain, though because of their noble spirits they did not die, and aged only by the cares and labors of many long years. And this the Valar did, desiring to amend the errors of old, especially that they had attempted to guard and seclude the Eldar by their own might and glory fully revealed, whereas now their emissaries were forbidden to reveal themselves in forms of majesty, or to seek to rule the wills of men or elves by open display of power, but coming in shapes weak and humble, were bidden to advise and persuade men and elves to do good, and to seek to unite in love and understanding all those whom Sauron, should he come again, would endeavor to dominate and corrupt. While it is well known that Tolkien wrote of the wizards coming to Middle-earth in 1000 of the Third Age, his later writings indicate that the Blue Wizards, Alatar and Palando, came much earlier. They would instead arrive around 1600 of the Second Age, around the same time that Glorfindel returns to Middle-earth. As for Kurumo, Eowendil, and Olorin, they would arrive at the Grey Havens around 1000 of the Third Age, and are greeted by Círdan the Shipwright, while Kurumo, who would come to be known as Saruman, was regarded as the leader of their order. Olorin arrives last, and appears to be both the oldest and the least of the order. However, it is to Olorin, or Gandalf, that Círdan gives his Ring of Power, Narya, the Ring of Fire. As stated in the earlier passage, the Istari come to Middle-earth in the forms of old men, and they are susceptible to all the weaknesses that come with a mortal body. They feel hunger, pain, and all human emotions, and their bodies could indeed be killed, though their spirits were immortal. This is demonstrated quite clearly in both the case of Gandalf the Grey and Saruman, as their bodies are killed in the fight with the Balrog and at the hand of Grima Wormtongue, respectively. This constraint upon the Istari was made so they would assist the free peoples of Middle-earth against Sauron, not seeking to dominate their will as Sauron himself had done. In Unfinished Tales, it tells of the wizards' early days in Middle-earth and learning to use their new forms. For it is said indeed that being embodied, the Istari had need to learn much anew by slow experience. And though they knew whence they came, the memory of the blessed realm was to them a vision from afar off, for which, so long as they remained true to their mission, they yearned exceedingly. Thus, by enduring of free will the pangs of exile and the deceits of Sauron, they might redress the evils of that time. Very few in Middle-earth knew the true nature of the wizards, and it was not information the Istari shared with others. Most simply believed them to be some form of elves or wise men, who had acquired great knowledge of lore and arts from long and secret study. In Appendix B, we learn that there were only 3 in Middle-earth who knew the truth of the wizards. None knew at that time whence they were, save Círdan of the Havens, and only to Elrond and to Galadriel did he reveal that they came over the sea. But afterwards it is said among the elves that they were messengers sent by the lords of the West to contest the power of Sauron, if he should arise again, and to move elves and men and all living things of good will to valiant deeds. In the likeness of men they appeared, old but vigorous, and they changed little with the years, and aged but slowly, though great cares lay on them. Great wisdom they had, and many powers of mind and hand. Long they journeyed far and wide among elves and men, and held converse also with beasts and with birds. Having covered their form, we'll move on to what is briefly touched on here, their powers of mind and hand. Tolkien's magic, including that of the Istari, is mysterious and doesn't have rigid structure or rules, what many fantasy fans refer to as a soft magic system. While we don't have clear-cut rules for what a wizard can and can't do, we do see a fair number of examples of their power in action. As we know, Radagast the Brown comes to care deeply for the animals and plants of Middle-earth, like Yavanna, whom he had served. It is his friendship with Gwaihir, the Great Eagle, that would lead to Gandalf's escape from Orthanc, as Radagast had bidden him to bring news there. We also see Saruman himself has a way with at least one kind of animal. The Crebine were large crow-like birds native to the lands of Dunland and Fangorn Forest, and he would use them as spies against the Fellowship of the Ring. Sticking with Radagast for a moment more, we are told by Gandalf that he is a master of shapes and changes of hue. While hue may seem a clear-cut meaning for variation in color, Tolkien uses these same terms when describing the Valar themselves. Now the Valar took to themselves shape and hue, and because they were drawn into the world by love of the children of Ilúvatar, for whom they hoped, they took shape after that manner which they had beheld in the vision of Ilúvatar. Here, Tolkien uses shape and hue to describe when the Valar take on forms to present themselves to elves and men, not unlike the way the Istari took on forms of old men when coming to Middle-earth. We can only guess Radagast's true ability here, but it causes one to wonder if he could cloak himself, either by transformation or illusion. In Gandalf, we see even more abilities. We see where he repels the Nazgul from Weathertop, with a light and flame not seen since the war beacons of Amansul of old. He assists Elrond in making the flood of the Bruinen that sweeps away the Black Riders. He places a shutting spell on the door of the chamber of Mazarbul, which the Balrog counters. And when he smote his staff on the bridge of Khazad-dûm, a great flame shoots up, and as we know, the bridge itself breaks. And this is just one of those times where Gandalf's abilities with fire and flame come into play. Another such instance is when the Fellowship is attacked by wargs prior to their arrival at Moria. We see Gandalf wield fire in fantastic ways, including igniting Legolas's last arrow as it flies through the air and kills the chief warg. It's possible that such skill with fire is aided by Gandalf's possession of a Ring of Power. Also in Fellowship, Gandalf shows how menacingly supernatural his presence can become, and implies it can become far worse. "Well, if you want my ring yourself, say so," cried Bilbo. "But you won't get it. I won't give my precious away, I tell you." His hand strayed to the hilt of his small sword. Gandalf's eyes flashed. "It will be my turn to get angry soon," he said. "If you say that again, I shall. Then you will see Gandalf the Grey uncloaked." He took a step toward the hobbit, and he seemed to grow tall and menacing. His shadow filled the little room. It is also hinted that Gandalf has some level of what we might call telepathic power. After Frodo awakes in Rivendell, Gandalf tells him that he talked long in his sleep, and it was not hard for the wizard to read his mind and memory. Another such instance comes after Gandalf is presumed dead by the Fellowship after his fall. We find out much later in the story that when Frodo put on the ring at Amon Hen, It was Gandalf's voice that told him to take off the ring. And Gandalf says that in that moment, he sat in the high place and strove with the Dark Tower, implying he was engaged in a battle of minds with Sauron, despite being hundreds of miles away. In The Return of the King, Gandalf puts forth a shaft of white light when he rescues the soldiers of Gondor from the attacking winged Nazgul. Yet another ability of Gandalf was some manner of foresight, often conveyed as a prompting of his heart, as in the case when he says that his heart tells him Gollum has some part to play yet, for good or ill, before the end. Others he says with much greater conviction. In Unfinished Tales, he tells Thorin Oakenshield, "If this hobbit goes with you, you will succeed. If not, you will fail. A foresight is on me, and I am warning you." As for Saruman, his greatest ability is not necessarily his overt magic, but his voice and speech. When he focused his power on a person or group of people, he could sway their hearts, or plant fears, or sow lies as he pleased. Depending on how stout the listener was, this spell could last just as long as his speech, or it could take hold of them and last forever. He is so powerful in this that he convinces the Witch King that he knows nothing of the One Ring or the Shire, and the Nazgul are left to turn their search for answers elsewhere. Having been a Maya of Aule, like Sauron himself, Saruman shows an aptitude for crafting. He creates the blasting fire which the Uruk-hai use at Helm's Deep, and even the race of the Uruk-hai themselves, while not original to Saruman, are replicated in the depths of Isengard by his doing. Saruman also possesses great knowledge, especially of the Rings of Power, and his crafting takes him so far as to attempt to forge his own Ring of Power. However, by this time, the only one with knowledge of how to truly create such a ring was Sauron. Thus, Saruman's was likely similar in quality to the Lesser Rings, rather than one of the 19. Saruman also seems able to give great speed and motivation to his orcs, despite being a great distance away, as the orcs carrying Merry and Pippin demonstrate. We are also told that he sets his will against those who may oppose him in his dominion, implying his very will works against the three hunters. One last ability of the Istari comes in the final confrontation of Saruman and Gandalf. In a later passage from The Return of the King, we see Gandalf is able to disarm Denethor of his sword with a mere motion of his hand. But when Gandalf, Theoden, Aragorn, and their company come to Orthanc, we see how great the power of the White Wizard can be. Saruman's face grew livid, twisted with rage. He laughed wildly. "If you wish to treat with me, come back when you are sober. Good day." He turned and left the balcony. "Come back, Saruman," said Gandalf in a commanding voice. To the amazement of the others, Saruman turned again, and as if dragged against his will, he came slowly back to the iron rail, leaning on it, breathing hard. His face was lined and shrunken. His hand clutched his heavy black staff like a claw. "I did not give you leave to go," said Gandalf sternly. "I have not finished. You have become a fool, Saruman, and yet pitiable. You might still have turned away from folly and evil, and have been of service, but you choose to stay, and gnaw the ends of your old plots. Stay then, but I warn you, you will not easily come out again. Not unless the dark hands of the East stretch out to take you." "Saruman," he cried, and his voice grew in power and authority. "Behold, I am not Gandalf the Grey whom you betrayed. I am Gandalf the White, who has returned from death. You have no color now, and I cast you from the Order and from the Council." He raised his hand and spoke slowly in a clear, cold voice. "Saruman, your staff is broken." There was a crack, and the staff split asunder in Saruman's hand, and the head of it fell down at Gandalf's feet. "Go," said Gandalf. With a cry, Saruman fell back and crawled away. While mysterious, Tolkien gives us many clues and insights into the Istari. It's no wonder they are among the most intriguing of his characters and inspire so much theorizing. Immensely powerful beings tasked with not using all their great power, but to inspire others to rise up against Sauron. In them we see the paths of those who remain faithful to their calling, those who betray it, and perhaps those who depart from it altogether. But for more on their individual stories and the answers of their ultimate fates, check out my individual videos on each of the 5 Istari, or Wizards, of Middle-earth. As always, I want to say a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters who make this channel possible. Tom DeBombadil 19, Listen Me the Cinda, Celebrimbor, The Mighty Mim, Team Weasel, Rabbi Rob Thomas, Charles Leisure, Toby Mobs Music, CCDC Red Team, Nerd Sidgeman Anytimer, Pelkey Sports Cards, Moki the Brown, Christopher Carbaugh, Joe Tepper, Sky Carcass, Slide Belts, Dane Ragnarsson, Salim Rahman, Zetrock, Berto Berg, Grand Strategy Nerd, Graham Darricott, The Dark-Haired One, Wyland, Michael Wu, and Debbie. If you enjoyed the artwork in this video, check out the artists in the description and purchase prints of their great work for yourself. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and we'll see you next time on Nerd of the Rings.